And we are back. So speaking of kids, and as a girl who loved her daddy, which is
Rightfully
typical,
so, right?
Yeah, which is typical. You know, there's certain things, there are a lot of things. We can have a whole show on the benefit of fathers to daughters or the benefit of fathers to sons, because it's really strange nowadays. There are a lot of people running around who somehow don't know why fathers are critical. It's just weird.
Yeah, that
so
is.
yeah, that's another one, you know. But anyway, when it comes to daughters, the next question number 7, how do you model faithfulness to your daughter if you have multiple women? How?
So speaking as a man, and I am a man.
Yes.
You know, again, I said this in the last segment, and I'll state it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's explained to them. You know, I think it's a very well-known thing that boys have to be boys and girls have to be girls. And that if you think you're going to do what men do, you definitely won't be treated the same. The question we have to ask ourselves is this type of behavior interchangeable? Is a man having multiple wives and a woman having multiple husbands the same type of thing, or is there something wrong with it? And that's why I said it jumps back to the moral aspect. But as far as being faithful, all of us should set standards for our children, what they should and shouldn't be doing, and what it means to them to be in a marriage. And so once we are able to establish those lines, I think daughters will be fine.
I just want to clarify, because I just
Sure.
want to make sure. What I'm basically saying is one of the things that fathers do for their daughters is they model manhood, right? So when the daughter grows up, then she has a good guide or a background that tells her what type of man is worthy of paying attention to.
This is a man.
Yes. Yeah, this is a man and this over here clearly isn't. So if a man has these multiple women, how is his daughter able to see what a man who's faithful would look like?
So I state that you have to have these conversations with your daughter.
What would you say to your daughter? You know, what
You
kind
mean,
of...
what have I said?
Okay, what have you said to your daughter, especially regarding things like this?
Find a man who loves you. Find a man who wants to take care of you, because that's everything that I am. Find a man that you like being around. Find a man you don't mind listening to and who doesn't mind listening to you. You know, all these things are there.
Okay.
Said, listen, you love me, but you don't like me all the time. Let's not fool ourselves. There's sometimes when you don't like your father, right? And I have my ways and people have their ways, and I don't highlight my mistakes, but I realize that there are certain things that I don't do well. And so you understand that. Say, but you love me as your father because of the way I treat you. When you look for a husband, find a man that you like the way he treats you.
Okay.
That will be indicative of who you can spend the rest of your life with. Because here's the reality. Me and you can't marry one another. You're my daughter. There's not another me walking around.
Yeah.
You can't clone me. If you try and compare me to every man you meet, you're going to be very lonely for a very long time. And so I stopped and I told all of my daughters, hey, listen, don't worry so much about impressing me. I want to be impressed. Don't worry so much about impressing me. Make sure you're happy with the person. Because if you're happy with the person, I'm happy with the person.
But how can they find a man who will be faithful to them in a monogamous relationship when monogamy had never been modeled to them?
One, that's provided they're looking for monogamy. Right?
Interesting.
And they have their own choices to make in life. And two, they have to sit down and have the conversation. I don't know what it is about us as a people. We're afraid to stop and say what we want.
What do you think it is? What do you think it is?
I don't know. And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Because women are content in living in a relationship for an extended amount of time and say, I hope one day he asks to marry me.
That's crazy. Instead of having the discussion about marriage.
Instead it's like, hey, listen, how long are we going to do this? We're doing everything except the very idea of marriage. Why is that? When is the appropriate time to have a conversation about children? When is the appropriate time to have questions about your future? It's like, hey, listen, are we going to build something here? Are we always going to rent? or we're going to buy a house. You understand? And the fact is that sometimes we know it's like the person is on the edge of being 1 foot out the door.
Okay.
You know, maybe I'll be here, maybe I'm not. Maybe I don't know if I really want to marry you because, and sometimes it's the history that's there, what has happened in between. But regardless of the history, you shouldn't be afraid to have the conversation. Sometimes you realize that a person's only there for convenience. And it's important to have that conversation with your mate so that you know what you're dealing with. Sometimes you throw it out on the table. Anybody can lie to you, but it's like, are you only with me because it's convenient for you? Are you only with me because you want a place to stay? And guess what? You may not always need for the person to validate it. Their actions can speak louder than their words. This person's only with me because I have X, Y, and Z. And if you know that's not what you want, if you know that's not a person who you can spend the rest of your life with, then make your decision. So when it comes to polygyny, that's when you're looking for the model, but you're not going to marry me.
Yeah.
So the thing that's important is how a person treats you, how he treats his mother, how he treats the people in his life. If you could sit down and say, you'd be like, oh, he's mean to those people, and not think that side of him can't come out on you.
Yeah. And that's foolish. Well, why don't we flip the script a little bit and talk about health?
Okay.
Yes. Now we're jumping to question number 8.
Health and polygyny?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yes. Okay. What about what they're now calling STIs, which is sexually transmitted infections? But when we were coming up, we called them STDs. Okay. What about them? How can somebody be safe? But how can somebody be safe? How can men be safe putting their bodies into a whole bunch of women? And how can women be safe receiving, sexual interaction with a man who's been with all these chicks who they don't know?
Okay. So one personal opinion. You can be in a monogamous relationship and get a STI. And that has more to do with personal hygiene and the exchange of fluids and things of that nature, as opposed to multiple sexual partners. So the sexual partners in the act makes it easily transferable, right? Because you are intimate with this person. Yeah. And that's the way you get it, as opposed to just getting a disease. So I will stop and I'll say this. There are people.
Wait. If you have multiple partners, of course, that increases the amount of bodily fluids being exchanged.
But does not increase the likelihood that you get an infection.
More bodily fluids does not increase the likelihood.
The likelihood is if you with, I hate to say it like this, if you with a nasty person who doesn't, practice good personal hygiene, that's going to happen. Disease lives off of bacteria. Okay. And so I don't want to get into that whole medical field. Yeah. But what I'm going to say is that when you can have a man, and I point to other countries as my point of reference, you have people who have more than one wife. And I speak to African nations in particular, people in Ethiopia, Ghana, Nigeria, things of that nature. There's not an epidemic going on.
Actually, Africa supposedly has an AIDS epidemic and an HIV epidemic all across that continent.
Well, I would I would state to that.
You about to go conspiracy theory?
Yes, I am. The flu vaccine, you know where I'm at with this. the benevolent one has come and told them that they'll heal them from something that they never suffered from. But that's a conversation for another time. Yeah. But what I'm going to say is that we see immorality in our own country, right here. Mm-hmm. Sexual immorality often, and people don't catch diseases every time they have a multiple they deal with multiple partners. Okay. So it's as much about hygiene as it is about knowing who you're with and how you present yourself.
So ultimately, question number 9 pops up. Mm-hmm. Why would a woman agree to this? she's stuck with one man, whereas this
Stuck.
man isn't. Yes,
I have
whereas
to jump that in there.
whereas
Stuck.
this
You said
man
stuck.
is not stuck.
Stuck, Miss Eve. Stuck.
Look,
Nobody's stuck.
But look, I'm using the word stuck because I think that's what the man would consider himself to be if he has just one woman.
Well, I'm a man and you're a woman, so you can't speak for the male race.
Well, I'm
How about
asking
that?
you to speak the male race. You mean the male gender? But
male gender, yes.
But I know that you can't speak for women, but you've been around families like this more than I have. So why would a woman agree to being stuck with one man while her husband could just do whatever he wants?
One simple word. You ready for me?
No.
Happiness.
She's happy being stuck with one man while he can do what he wants.
No, you keep using that word stuck.
He would
She's
feel
happy.
stuck if it was the other way around.
That's your opinion.
Okay.
You keep saying stuck, but one, nobody's ever stuck in a relationship. You make the decision to stay.
Would you consider yourself stuck if you had to stick to one woman?
No.
You would not consider yourself stuck?
I would not.
Okay, cool.
I would not. Why?
All right, so then I won't use the word stuck.
Why? Because she makes me happy.
Okay.
Now, if she didn't make me happy and I had to stay, then yes, I'd be like, I'm stuck. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm here. Why do I have to deal with this? This woman is crazy. She treats me this way. Of course, I'm embellishing right now. But my point is that there's, and obviously from the inflection in my tone, that word stuck. I have this thing with people. It's like you make decisions for who you want to be with.
Okay.
Nobody comes and hits you over the head and you wake up in an apartment and you're like, this is my life.
Yeah.
You decided who you wanted to be with. You decided who you expose your body to. You decided who you would spend your free time with. If that person changes, then make a decision. If that person hasn't changed and you have changed, then make a decision. But the reality is that you have people who sometimes they're saying that they're stuck, but there's certain things that they like, and there's certain things that they don't like. And so when
they're choosing to stay when they weigh the pros and the cons, they're choosing that the pros have actually won.
Correct. And there's this thing with polygyny that from women who are in it that I know that they always say they enjoy
their time off. Their time off.
They enjoy their freedom of not having a man around
24/7
all the time. So they're like, hey, listen, when we get together, we get together. And when we don't, we don't. And it's okay. In my opinion, for younger women, they desire that.
The men to be up under them.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas we begin to mature, then it's like, I understand how to spend my time. I understand what I need to do. And it's like, all right, this is okay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't become burdensome. And so, I always teach, it's like everybody needs their time to themselves, even if you're stuck. It's like you ain't got to be, I'm in the living room, now you're in the living room. I'm in the bedroom, now you're in the bedroom. I'm in the den, now you're in the den. You're like, what's going on here?
Wait, so are you ultimately saying that a woman should not care what her man does in terms of other relationships outside of her? If she is happy, then when she was happy when it was just those two, nothing has changed. His time spent with her hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is that he has other women. So she should just stick to being happy because she has a man.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Now, a man can go and do something that would be very dangerous. And so there has to be a responsibility with polygyny. And it's like, you like going to sleep with nasty women who like being with multiple men. She'll tell you she likes being with multiple men, but you're going to, for lack of a better term, going to get your rocks off. And there's nothing, God doesn't like anything about that. And there's something dangerous when those STIs that we were just speaking of, you bring back to the woman. Why? Because she has trusted you. She's trusted you that you're going to develop good relationships or try and develop a good relationship, because not all relationships work. And so for you to go and be irresponsible with your body and then expose it to her.
Yeah.
And which a big problem with STIs is like, you wouldn't even wait the time for you to heal before you come and be with another woman and enter her body. And then now she has to live with your decisions.
Yeah.
And
whatever children might come out of that, etc.
Well, that's another